Imagine a famously quiet, unassuming younger brother completely outsmarting the reigning monarch by doing the one thing no one expected, keeping every single receipt. On March 25, 2026, King Charles III received a devastating written reality check that absolutely shattered his fundamental assumption about holding unchecked royal power over family assets. Before we deeply unpack exactly how Prince Edward successfully defended his family's legacy against a ruthless palace power grab, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. Your incredible support fuels these explosive royal deep dives, and we are just getting started. The intense drama began with the late Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. They knew exactly how ruthless the royal machinery could become. So before her passing, the Queen made a highly deliberate, legally binding decision to pass the legendary Duke of Edinburgh title to Edward, the one son who never brought scandal to the crown. But the prestigious title was only half of this massive inheritance. The other half was Bagshot Park, an intimidating 120-room Tudor Gothic mansion sitting on 51 sprawling acres inside Windsor Great Park. Elizabeth and a dying Prince Philip signed a highly secretive letter of intent permanently linking the massive estate directly to the dukedom. However, once Charles officially took the throne, his aggressive corporate-style modernization agenda immediately targeted this exact property. Charles incorrectly believed he possessed the absolute sovereign authority to aggressively reclaim royal assets at will. The palace applied suffocating, behind closed doors pressure on Edward to surrender Bagshot Park, attempting to ruthlessly reduce him to an empty duke in name only. But the administration severely underestimated him. Back in the late 90s, Bagshot Park was a dilapidated, completely unwanted burden. Edward took a 50-year lease and personally poured nearly £3 million of his own hard-earned private money into immediate, massive renovations. Contrast this incredible integrity with his brother Andrew, who lived lavishly at Royal Lodge without paying market rates, and the institutional hypocrisy becomes blinding. Edward strategically went even further, paying £5 million in 2007 to extend his ironclad lease to an untouchable 150 years. Now valued at a staggering £30 million, the estate was a massive financial target, but Edward was fully armed with a bulletproof legal dossier, the original financial lease, 2 decades of meticulous maintenance records, and that deeply guarded letter of intent signed by the Queen and witnessed by Philip. Edward was fully prepared for a massive, unprecedented legal war, but Charles still controlled the central system, making the situation incredibly dangerous. And just when the property dispute reached a boiling point, the palace launched a viciously personal, undercover attack not against Edward, but directly against his beloved wife. The palace's next move wasn't just a legal maneuver. It was a deeply personal, emotionally devastating strike orchestrated directly from the office of Queen Camilla. Under the deceptive guise of a routine national heritage jewelry audit, a palace official arrived to quietly interrogate Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, about the one piece of jewelry that defined her royal existence, the breathtaking anthem tiara. Commissioned specifically for Sophie by Queen Elizabeth II for her 1999 wedding. This masterpiece was crafted using ancient elements from Queen Victoria's private collection. For over 2 decades, it was essentially the only tiara Sophie was permitted to wear. Take it away, and she is left with absolutely nothing. Camilla's aggressive legal argument was terrifyingly sharp. Because the tiara contained Victorian stones, it should be immediately classified as crown property, locked in the central royal vault, and only issued with explicit permission. If they could successfully strip away Sophie's wedding tiara, it would open a catastrophic door to forcefully reclaim dozens of highly personal gifts given by Elizabeth over her historic reign. The public fiercely remembered when Camilla took Princess Diana's spectacular wedding necklace, redesigned it into a brooch, and paraded it publicly to massive outrage. This time, Edward refused to be bullied. His elite lawyers aggressively retaliated with a devastating document that instantly shut down Camilla's argument, a legally binding deed of gift signed personally by Queen Elizabeth. This document definitively classified the anthem tiara as a private, untouchable wedding present belonging exclusively to Sophie. Furthermore, Edward revealed a brilliant layer of legal protection. Years earlier, he had personally designed a spectacular set of matching pearl jewelry for the tiara. Because Edward officially held the design rights, his lawyers argued that removing the tiara would illegally break a single, unified artistic asset. The tension reached a breaking point on the afternoon of March 25th, when Edward's team delivered an explosive nuclear warning to Buckingham Palace. They explicitly stated that if the malicious claim on Sophie's tiara was not entirely dropped, they would mercilessly release highly private letters written by Queen Elizabeth herself. These letters didn't just prove Sophie's ownership, they reportedly contained Elizabeth's brutally honest, heavily guarded thoughts regarding Camilla. Releasing those specific letters would instantly destroy years of Charles's desperate PR campaigns to rebuild Camilla's public image. Edward boldly secured the anthem tiara inside a high-security private safe, surrounded by his own security team, locking the central palace out. The terrifying legal warnings had been forcefully delivered, pushing the king into a desperate corner. But the final, killing blow wouldn't come from lawyers. It would dramatically walk right through the heavy doors of Buckingham Palace in the formidable shape of Princess Anne. When Princess Anne aggressively stormed into a highly private room inside Buckingham Palace on the afternoon of March 25th, the entire power dynamic of the British monarchy violently shifted. There was absolutely no polite small talk. She went straight for the throat. Following the devastating loss of both parents, Anne had formed an incredibly tight bond with Sophie. She was absolutely furious that Camilla was callously attempting to steal the precious few sentimental things Queen Elizabeth had left behind for a woman who viewed her as a surrogate mother. Anne coldly looked King Charles in the eye and delivered a legendary ultimatum if he cowardly allowed private gifts and legal leases signed by their mother to be ruthlessly revoked. Then, the solemn word of a British monarch meant absolutely nothing. She chillingly warned him that if Elizabeth's signature wasn't worth the paper it was written on today, then Charles's own signature would be entirely worthless tomorrow. Anne was directly attacking the very constitutional foundation of his fragile reign. She definitively confirmed that she had personally reviewed Edward's bulletproof financial records for Bagshot Park and made it terrifyingly clear that the property lease and the tiara were exactly the same fight. But she didn't stop there. Having painfully watched Princess Diana systematically isolated and destroyed by the palace machinery decades earlier, Anne refused to let history violently repeat itself with Sophie. She delivered a nuclear threat if Camilla did not immediately back down. Anne would personally launch a massive, highly public financial audit of Queen Camilla's entire private household, exposing every single hidden expense directly to the unforgiving British public. Coming from Anne, this was a catastrophic threat that Charles simply could not survive. Trapped in a terrifying minefield, Charles was completely paralyzed. His own legal team explicitly warned him that Edward's position was virtually unbreakable. Late that evening, a cold, utterly emotionless formal note was dispatched from the master of the jewel house to Sophie, brutally confirming that the anthem tiara would permanently remain under her exclusive private control. Simultaneously, the aggressive review of Bagshot Park was quietly and humiliatingly shut down. The crown had officially backed down. A reigning king attempted a massive power grab against his quiet younger brother and was forced to admit devastating defeat in writing. But this historic victory came at an incredibly toxic, irreparable cost. The royal family is now permanently fractured into two distinct warring camps. On one side, Charles and Camilla desperately attempt to maintain a facade of absolute control. On the other side stands a formidable, impenetrable fortress led by Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and Sophie, quietly supported by Prince William and Catherine. Edward proved to the world that unquestioning loyalty is completely useless without ironclad leverage, humiliating the central institution by using their own laws against them. The palace desperately wants you to believe the royal family is united, but behind those closed doors, it is an absolute war zone. If you want to know what they are trying to hide next, hit that subscribe button right now. The secrets we are dropping in the next video will completely blow your mind. See you there.